There are encounters that feel like accidents, collisions, almost. They arrive suddenly, uninvited, and they shake the foundations of what you thought love should feel like. And yet, somehow, it is these very encounters that reveal to us who we truly are. Buddhism often speaks not in terms of enemies, but of mirrors, not in terms of villains, but of karmic messengers. And so, what if the one who broke your trust, the one whose love felt more like a trap than a sanctuary, what if they weren't here to ruin you, but to reveal you? Zen teaches that some of our greatest awakenings come wrapped in paradox. The kind person who leads us to harm, the toxic presence that initiates healing, the most painful relationship that delivers the most sacred transformation. So we begin with a question, not of blame, but of insight. Why did I meet someone who could look at me with love and yet never see me? Why was I drawn to a person who only ever reflected my absence? This question does not arise from logic. It arises from deep ache. And Zen, rather than giving you answers, hands you a lantern, not to show you the path, but to help you see in the dark. Today, we will explore the soul teaching that hides inside one of the most challenging human experiences, being entangled with a narcissist. This is not a lesson in labeling others. It is an invitation to look inward, not to ask, why are they this way, but why did I stay? You were not foolish. You were not weak. But something in you, something half asleep, was ready to awaken. And they were the alarm bell. 1. The narcissist is not your enemy. They are the mirror. Not all pain is punishment. Some pain is initiation. When a narcissist walks into your life, they don't announce themselves with horns. They arrive with charm, with intensity, with a gaze that feels like home. But behind the warmth is a hollowness, not easily seen, but deeply felt. At first, you might call it chemistry, or fate, or maybe even love. But beneath that immediate attraction is something more ancient, something buried. What you're truly sensing isn't their soul. It's your own emptiness recognizing someone who knows how to fill it, even if only temporarily. Zen doesn't view this as coincidence. It views it as karmic precision. What appears as chaos is often the soul's orchestration. In Buddhist teachings, all experiences arise from conditions. A narcissist doesn't show up randomly. They are invited, not by conscious will, but by unresolved longing, by a wound that whispers, "Find someone who makes me feel whole." And so, they arrive, not to complete you, but to challenge the illusion that you were ever incomplete. The narcissist is not your enemy. They are a mirror, a brutal, unfiltered reflection of the places where your boundaries are weak, where your self-worth still negotiates, where your love for others still outweighs your love for self. They teach you through tension, not tenderness. They awaken you through confusion, not clarity. But make no mistake, awakening is the assignment. Some souls come to us like incense, filling the room with calm. Others come like fire, burning away everything that isn't real. Which one do you think transforms you more? 2. Karma isn't cruelty. It's the echo of your readiness. We often speak of karma as if it's retribution, a cosmic debt being collected. But karma, in its purest form, is not vengeance. It's revelation. It shows you what you're ready to see. The moment a narcissist enters your life, it can feel like a punishment, especially if all you offered was sincerity, empathy, and love. But what if this wasn't the universe punishing you, but preparing you? Buddhism teaches that nothing arises independently. Everything is the fruit of conditions. A storm does not appear in a blue sky without the right winds, heat, and humidity converging. Likewise, a narcissistic relationship doesn't manifest unless something inside of you has made space for it. That something is often unconscious, a set of silent beliefs inherited over years or lifetimes. Beliefs like, love must be earned, my needs are secondary, kindness will eventually win them over. Karma is not the cruelty of suffering. It is the clarity born of contact. The narcissist appears not to inflict new wounds, but to expose old ones you've normalized. Their presence draws forth the shadows, beliefs about your unworthiness, fears of abandonment, the buried voice that asks, am I enough? And here is the Zen paradox. The narcissist does not come to validate your value. They come to show you how often you have forgotten it. When you wonder why you tolerated the manipulation, why you justified their silence, why you dimmed your light so they could shine, it wasn't because you were weak. It was because you were conditioned to survive, conditioned to adapt, conditioned to love even those who gave nothing back. Karma is not asking you to suffer more. It's asking you to wake up. It brings the wound back into your field of vision so you no longer have to live beneath its unconscious rule. And when you finally stop blaming them, when you begin asking why this pattern feels so familiar, you're not descending into despair. You're rising into awareness. This is karma's mercy, not the pain, but the chance to finally end the cycle. 3. Compassion is sacred, but without boundaries, it becomes self-betrayal. In the teachings of Zen, compassion is revered as one of the highest virtues. But Zen also warns, even light can blind when there's no discernment. There is a silent tragedy in spiritual seekers, those who want so deeply to embody love that they forget to protect themselves. The narcissist does not merely exploit your weaknesses. They exploit your strengths, your empathy, your forgiveness, your desire to believe in someone's potential. You mistake your endurance for grace. But Zen reminds us, even a bodhisattva walks with a sword, not to harm, but to protect the sacred within. When you stayed through the endless apologies that changed nothing, when you forgave actions that kept repeating, when you confused your silence with understanding, you weren't being holy. You were being hijacked by your own goodness. Compassion without wisdom is not compassion. It is a door with no lock, and the narcissist knows how to walk through it without knocking. It's not that you loved too much. It's that you gave love without asking whether the other person could hold it, whether they could respect it, whether they deserved it. Zen does not teach us to shut down the heart. It teaches us to sharpen it. It asks, at what point does kindness become self-abandonment? When does patience become silence in the face of abuse? When does love become the leash by which you're pulled deeper into delusion? The narcissist teaches you this, that you must not offer your soul as a sacrifice to someone who worships only themselves. Their rejection of your love is not your failure. It's the mirror that shows you where you need to reclaim power, where you must choose to love yourself more than you love the idea of who they could become. And that is the hidden blessing. They did not destroy your compassion. They forced it to mature. They turned your blind, giving into conscious offering. They forced you to ask, who is worthy of my love? And am I? 4. You were not sent to heal them. You were sent to see yourself. There's a quiet lie many of us carry, especially those with gentle hearts. If I just love them enough, they will change. It sounds noble. It sounds spiritual. But it's not love, it's illusion. Zen teaches that transformation is an inside job. No amount of external affection can shift someone who is not ready to meet themselves. And yet, when you encountered the narcissist, a part of you, perhaps the part that still believed in redemption at any cost, stepped forward and said, I can be the one who saves them. But you were not sent to be their healer. You were not their therapist, their redeemer, or their final chance. You were a mirror, and mirrors don't fix. They reveal. And that is what terrified them most. A narcissist seeks admiration, not reflection. They want applause, not honesty. They crave worship, not truth. When your presence began to reflect their shadows, their wounds, their manipulations, their need to control, they recoiled. Not because you were wrong, but because you were clear. Clarity threatens illusion, and you became too clear to keep. Here's the deeper Zen truth. They didn't discard you because you weren't enough. They discarded you because you were becoming too much of yourself. You didn't fail them. You frightened them because your authenticity called theirs into question. And rather than rise to meet you, they retreated into their familiar fortress of blame and deflection. This was not a loss. It was a redirection. You were never meant to spend your life tending to someone who refuses to tend to themselves. The heartbreak, as cruel as it felt, was a doorway. One you walked through not by saving them, but by finally saving yourself. In their collapse, your reconstruction began. In their denial, your self-seeing awakened. You didn't come into their life to fix them. You came into it to remember that your worth is not dependent on your usefulness to another's dysfunction. And once you realize that, the healing truly begins. 5. The narcissist was not the storm, they were the trigger. When we look back on our most painful relationships, it's easy to see the other as the storm. The one who came in, tore everything down, left us standing in ruins. But Zen would ask you to look closer, not at what happened, but at what it revealed. The narcissist did not create your wounds. They activated them. The real storm was already there, hidden beneath the surface of your life. in the fears you never voiced, in the boundaries you never built, in the silence you accepted in place of love. The narcissist merely arrived and stirred the waters. And it is only in turbulence that we learn what needs anchoring. What if their betrayal wasn't the real trauma? What if the deeper pain was realizing how often you betrayed yourself just to stay? How many red flags you painted white? How many apologies you gave yourself in the mirror because they never would? You see, the narcissist wasn't your punishment. They were the curriculum. And the subject? Your own relationship with truth. They forced you to confront the part of you that feared loneliness more than disrespect. The part that equated being chosen with being worthy. The part that still whispered, if they leave, it must be my fault. In Buddhism, liberation begins when illusion ends. The narcissist came bearing the final illusion, that your value was dependent on someone else's recognition. And when that illusion shattered, something sacred happened. You stopped seeking their validation. You stopped explaining your worth. You stopped bleeding just to prove you were alive. And in that stillness, you remembered, I do not need to be understood by the one who refuses to see. I only need to see myself clearly. That's the deeper meaning of the storm. Not destruction, but exposure. They didn't show you who you are. They showed you who you no longer have to be. 6. Silence is not surrender. It's your return to power. There is a moment, usually after the final argument, the last broken promise, the last apology that feels more like manipulation, when you simply stop. You stop explaining yourself. You stop defending your kindness. You stop trying to get them to understand. And from the outside, it might look like surrender, but it's not. It's power, returning to its rightful place. In the Zen tradition, silence is not absence, it is presence. It is not weakness. It is wisdom that has grown tired of wasting breath on those who do not listen. When you were with the narcissist, your voice was always on trial. Your reality questioned. Your intentions twisted. And so you talked more, explained more, pleaded more, until your words began to lose meaning, even to you. But in silence, you finally heard something else, your soul. Silence was never the end. It was the beginning of self-respect, of energetic sovereignty, of refusing to let your inner peace be a battleground for someone else's chaos. Zen teaches that when the hands are no longer clinging, they become free. In your silence, you unclench the fists of your expectations. You let go not just of them, but of who you tried to be for them. And here's the paradox. The more silent you became, the more clearly you saw. The narcissist didn't change. They simply ran out of illusions to feed you. And once the mask fell, you realized that you didn't need closure from them. Your clarity was the closure. Silence is sacred. It is not a void, but a vessel. It holds all the wisdom you drowned beneath noise and justification. So no, your quiet was not a retreat. It was a rebellion, a soft revolution, the sound of someone finally coming home to themselves. 7. The awakening begins after they leave. The real journey doesn't begin when they arrive. It begins the moment they're gone, and the silence no longer scares you. In the aftermath of leaving, or being left, there's a strange emptiness. It feels hollow, echoing with questions. Was any of it real? Why did I stay so long? Why did I let them shape so much of my identity? But slowly, the ache gives way to insight. Without their presence clouding your mind, something shifts. You start to notice how often you used to filter yourself through their eyes. How often you measured your worth by their mood. How many times you ignored your intuition just to maintain their comfort. Zen says, when the dust settles, the mirror becomes clear. And so you begin to see yourself, not as they saw you, but as you actually are. You realize that love is not supposed to feel like confusion. That kindness should not cost you your sanity. That intimacy without safety is not romance, it's erosion. As your vision sharpens, you start honoring what you once excused, the red flags you painted white, the boundaries you thought were betrayals, the exhaustion you misread as devotion. And here lies the great turning. You no longer seek their understanding. You don't need an apology. You don't need closure. You don't even need them to admit the truth. Because the truth is now alive within you. What you once called heartbreak, you now call awakening. This is the sacred unraveling. The unlearning of what love is not. So you can remember what love is. The narcissist was the fire. You were the phoenix. And now, in the ashes, your real self begins to rise. Not defined by pain, but refined by it. Not shaped by their absence, but illuminated by your return. This is your new beginning, and you no longer need anyone's permission to walk into it. 8. You weren't weak. You were wired to believe. It's easy to look back and ask, why didn't I leave sooner? Or how could I have let this happen? But those questions are heavy with judgment. Judgment that ignores one essential truth. You weren't weak. You were wired. From the time we are children, many of us are conditioned, taught, sometimes without words, that love must be earned, that peace comes through pleasing, that enduring someone's pain is the price of being loved. You didn't walk into that relationship because you lacked strength. You stayed because you were carrying an invisible script, a script that said, maybe if I love harder, they'll finally see me. Maybe if I'm patient, they'll change. Maybe if I become what they want, I'll finally be enough. Zen does not condemn this. It holds it with compassion. It knows the root of your pain isn't your fault, but your awakening is your responsibility. What happened with the narcissist wasn't proof of your flaws. It was a mirror for your inner programming. You didn't choose the suffering, but you did choose, consciously or not, to hope beyond reason. And that's not shameful. That's evidence of how deep your heart runs. But now, things are different. Now, awareness walks beside you. Now you understand that love without safety is survival, not intimacy. Now you know that someone needing you is not the same as someone cherishing you. Now you realize that staying silent to keep peace is just another way of abandoning yourself. The one who walked into that relationship was hopeful, loving, open. The one who walks away carries something even more powerful, discernment. And this is the moment Zen bows to you, not for leaving, but for seeing. Not for fixing them, but for reclaiming yourself. Not because the pain is gone, but because you are no longer blind to its lesson. You weren't weak. You were awakening. 9. Suffering is the soil where the lotus blooms. In Buddhist imagery, the lotus is a sacred flower, not because it's beautiful, but because of where it grows. It does not rise from clear water. It blooms from mud. And so does your awakening. The narcissist brought confusion, gaslighting, betrayal wrapped in affection. You lost sleep, lost trust, lost parts of yourself you once held with pride. But within that very darkness, beneath the chaos, beneath the heartbreak, something holy was quietly taking root. Clarity. Without the manipulation, would you have learned to value honesty so fiercely? Without the emotional chaos, would you have honored inner peace so deeply? Without the silence after your cries, would you have ever truly heard yourself? Zen does not glamorize pain, but it honors what pain can teach when met with presence. The narcissist was not your guide to love. They were your guide to limits. They taught you what you can no longer tolerate. They taught you that your energy is sacred. They taught you that loyalty to another must never come at the cost of betrayal to self. The mud they left you in, it did not drown you. It prepared you to grow upward, toward a light not reflected in another's eyes, but one already burning quietly inside your soul. This is the mystery of the Dharma. Sometimes, the teacher arrives in the form of a tormentor, not because you deserved pain, but because you were finally ready to see clearly. Your boundaries are now sacred. Your silence is now full of truth. And your love is no longer desperate. It is discerning. You are the lotus, and the mud was never your prison. It was your birthplace. 10. True freedom is walking away without hatred. There's a particular kind of heaviness that lingers after you leave someone who hurt you. Not just the pain of what happened, but the bitterness of what never did. The apology that never came. The acknowledgement you never received. The understanding that still floats just out of reach. And yet, Zen teaches us that true freedom does not come from being understood by them. It comes from releasing the need to be. Revenge is loud. Resentment is heavy. But release is quiet, and light, and powerful. The narcissist may never see your value. They may never own their harm. They may even twist the story, cast you as the villain, erase the history. Let them, because your healing isn't found in their clarity, it's found in yours. The moment you choose to walk away without hatred is the moment you reclaim your soul from their grip. Hatred binds you just as tightly as longing. It keeps the tether alive, the wound open, the story spinning. But when you let go, not just of them, but of the need for retribution, you become untouchable. This isn't denial. It's transcendence. You no longer need to prove anything to anyone who refused to see you in the first place. You no longer carry the burden of being their teacher. You no longer twist your truth to fit inside someone else's illusion. Zen does not teach us to forget, but to forgive for the sake of freedom. Not because they deserve peace, but because you do. And the most revolutionary thing you can do, the highest act of spiritual defiance, is to walk away in stillness. Without a scream, without a scarred heart, without the need to win. Because in that moment, you already have. 11. The gift hidden inside the pain. Pain rarely feels like a gift when you're in it. It feels like failure, like loss, like something sacred was taken from you and replaced with silence. But over time, as the fog lifts, you begin to notice something quietly blooming beneath the grief: wisdom. The narcissist may have left you wounded, confused, disoriented, but they also gave you a curriculum no classroom could ever offer. They taught you what manipulation feels like, not just what it looks like in theory. They taught you how to trust your gut, not when it's calm, but when it screams. They taught you the value of your own energy. By draining it so fully, you finally learned to protect it. Yes, they hurt you, but in doing so, they also highlighted the parts of you that were still healing. They made you revisit the origins of your silence. The moments in childhood when you learned that love must come at a cost. The times you swallowed pain just to be accepted. And that is the great irony of your suffering. They revealed what you never would have seen alone. This is not a romanticized view of abuse. It's an acknowledgement of the human spirit's power to transmute, to turn wounds into wisdom, to alchemize grief into growth. You are not who you were before them. You are more grounded, more awake, more attuned. You no longer chase affection, you evaluate it. You no longer assume good intentions, you observe them. And most importantly, you no longer apologize for needing peace. This was the hidden gift, not their love, but their absence. Because in that absence, you met yourself. You met your strength. You met your intuition. You met the version of you that no longer abandons herself to feel needed. In the teachings of Zen, the loudest lessons are often delivered in silence. This was one of them. 12. You were never broken, you were becoming. There's a moment, usually long after the dust has settled, when you look back not with sorrow, but with clarity. You see the version of you who stayed, who hoped, who tried, who carried more weight than she should have ever had to. And you don't pity her, you honor her, because even in the confusion, she was becoming. Zen does not measure progress in speed. It measures it in stillness, in insight, in how deeply we begin to listen, not to the world, but to our own inner voice. That voice, the one you silenced for so long to maintain the illusion of love, is now louder, clearer, and no longer afraid. You thought the narcissist broke you, but what they actually did was peel away the parts of you that no longer belonged. The parts that clung to conditional love. The parts that believed peace must be earned. The parts that settled for attention when what you truly needed was presence. In Buddhist teachings, destruction is often the gateway to creation. What looks like falling apart is actually falling into place. You were not shattered. You were shaped. Not ruined, but refined. Not left behind, but led forward. Every time they gaslit you, you grew more rooted in your own perception. Every time they devalued you, your soul rose up to whisper, "You are worth more." Every time they abandoned you, you were nudged closer to a truth, that self-return is the most sacred homecoming of all. And now, you are whole, not because they fixed you, but because you finally stopped waiting for them to. You are no longer trying to be understood. You are understanding yourself. You don't need closure. You are the closure. And you're walking forward, not with wounds, but with wisdom. There is a moment in every spiritual journey when what once felt like destruction is revealed to be a kind of divine alchemy. You see now that the narcissist wasn't sent to complete you. They were sent to expose everything you were never meant to carry. They weren't the fire. They were the match. The one that burned down the illusions you mistook for love. And in the ashes, something ancient and indestructible was revealed. You, not the fragmented self who needed to be chosen to feel worthy. Not the version of you that bent in half to be seen, but the self that remembers her power, remembers her intuition, remembers that love does not require erasure. Zen doesn't promise comfort. It promises truth. And sometimes, truth comes through the back door of pain. Because it is only when the false falls away that the true becomes visible. You thought they left you empty. But emptiness, in Zen, is not a void, it's space. space for rebirth, space for self-trust, space for silence that no longer echoes with fear, but hums with clarity. And now you understand. The narcissist did not defeat you. They revealed you. They weren't your soulmate. They were your soul mirror. Not to reflect your beauty, but your blind spots. Not to offer love, but to show where love was still missing within. And now, the final paradox. You thank them, not because they deserved your gratitude, but because through them, you were forced to meet yourself. You were the gold. They were the fire. And your life, now, is the purification. This was never your punishment. It was your passage. The Zen masters say, the lotus does not grow beside the mud. It grows through it. Now you understand what that means. The narcissist was not the mud itself. They were the catalyst, the turning point, the force that brought your hidden roots to the surface. They didn't bury you. They uncovered you. You were never powerless. Just patient. Just waiting for the right moment to rise. And now, here you are, no longer searching for answers in their apologies, no longer chasing meaning in someone else's eyes. You have become your own source, your own stillness, your own home. What they could not give you, you've begun to give yourself. Respect, compassion, presence, peace. And that is the truth that shocks, not because it's painful, but because it's freeing. You didn't survive them. You transcended them. You didn't lose yourself. You finally found yourself. And in the deepest Zen sense, this entire experience, every tear, every silence, every moment you questioned your worth, was not chaos. It was a path, a dharma gate, a necessary unraveling that led to an unshakable awakening. You now walk forward, lighter, wiser, whole, not defined by pain, but shaped by truth, not carrying the past, but honoring the wisdom it gave you. The narcissist is no longer your story. You are. The mud has done its work. The lotus has bloomed. And now, the silence is no longer empty. It is yours. If this message has found a home in your heart, know this. You are not alone on the path. You are part of a quiet revolution, one soul at a time, awakening through pain, remembering through stillness. If the words here reflected your story, or helped you name your truth, I invite you to stay connected. Subscribe to this channel for more reflections, more moments of clarity, and more reminders that your healing is sacred. And if you'd like, share your voice in the comments below. Not to be seen, not to be praised, but to join the silent circle of others who have walked through the fire and found gold. Let this space be a resting place, a lantern in the fog, and a gentle reminder that your light cannot be dimmed, not by abandonment, not by betrayal, and certainly not by someone who never truly saw you. Until next time, be still, be whole, and walk forward in peace.